Hello everyone. We are now going to discuss the evolution of public administration. Now, the term public administration stands for two implications. Firstly, it refers to the activity of the government in administering affairs of the people, and secondly, it refers to a field of study, a subject of study, a discipline like that of, say, political science, history, economics, sociology, psychology, and so on and so forth. And in this topic, we are going to deal with public administration as an academic discipline. And the topic here is evolution of public administration. Evolution means the gradual process of growth and development. So in this topic, we are going to explore how public administration as a discipline was born, and its process of growth and development, the journey it has taken from 1887 till now. Okay, so as a discipline, the subject was born in 1887, and since then it has passed through several phases of development. And we can broadly divide the history of public administration into the following five periods. Period 1 was between 1887 to 1926, period 2 1927 to 1937, period 3 1938 to 1947, period 4 1948 to 1970, and period 5 1971 to continuing. Now coming to the first period, that is period 1, 1887 to 1926. This period was known as the period of politics administration dichotomy. Okay, and the discipline of public administration, it was born in the United States of America. Woodrow Wilson, who was teaching political science at Princeton University and who later became the president of the United States of America, is regarded as the father of the discipline of public administration. So in 1887, he published an article known as The Study of Administration, in which he emphasized the need for a separate study of public administration as a discipline apart from politics. And this is known as the principle of politics administration dichotomy. Now, the reason Woodrow Wilson proposed this separation was because during that time the spoils system was prevailing in America. The spoils system was a system of political appointment which was there in the entire history of the United States of America, right from the time of Thomas Jefferson, who was the third president of the United States of America. Now, under the spoils system, whenever a new government was formed, the political masters would fire the officials that had been appointed by the previous government, and in their place they would appoint people belonging to their party, and party mile sa teka sarkar na thok turin unappoint chini. And this led to a lot of corruption. And one very tragic incident happened in July 2nd, 1881, when President James Garfield was assassinated by one of his supporters, Charles Julius Guteau. Charles Julius Guteau, he Garfield and presidential campaign ahuai hot live vel khan in a supporter niya nasa takin alo campaign sagveni chuanin election alo zowa result an han puang ta James Garfield ta kha president alo ni tani ta chuan James Julius Guteau khan in appointment base in Garfield chu ava mova tum thina mu po mulei theilo khan om ta ni khata khan alung oi lo khan in President James Garfield at Sokaplum Tani, he assassinated the president. And this led to a lot of debate, a lot of criticism against the spoils system. Kamin to kan 1883 kan Pendleton Act kan passed the niya Pendleton Act nuwa kachwanin spoils system ka merit system in ron thak tare ani tichwanin heti hunlai Woodrow Wilson hunlai khanin spoils system ka it was in full swing. Tichwanin Woodrow Wilson khan American political administrative system ka reform du na wang khan he dichotomy, separation of politics and administration kalo proposed tani. Tichwan he wanted to straighten the parts of the government, and he wanted to strengthen and purify the organization, administrative organization kati thiang limadua. Then he wanted to make public administration more business like, and that is why he proposed this principle of politics administration dichotomy. And in this he was supported by many scholars, including Frank J. Goodnow, who in 1900 published an article called Politics and Administration. Now, Frank J. Goodnow carried the Wilsonian theme further with greater courage and conviction. And in the beginning of the 20th century, public service movement became popular in the universities, and this was a movement for political reform. It was a movement for political reform. And in 1926, the first textbook on public administration was written by L.D. White. The name of the book was Introduction to the Study of Public Administration. It was during this period that public administration was established as a separate subject of study in many of the American universities. Now, these are some of the basic premises of the politics administration dichotomy. Under the politics administration dichotomy, it is argued that politics has to deal with the expression of the will of the people. That is, it has to be concerned with the formulation of policy, while administration has to deal with execution of the will of the people. That is, execution of public policy. Politics deals with politicians, while administration deals with civil servants, and one becomes politician by his popularity, either through positive or negative popularity, whereas one becomes civil servant by his intelligence, and one becomes a politician through elections, whereas one becomes civil servant through selection. And prior training is not given to the politicians, while the civil servants are professionals. They are given training, and they are trained professionals, experts in the art of administration. And politics is the center of the study, power is the center of study in politics, while in administration the central focus is to run the administration successfully, efficiently, and effectively. So these are the basic premises of the principle of politics administration dichotomy. Now we come to the second period, which is between 1927 to 1937. This period is known as the period of principles of administration. Now, if you look at this heading, you will see it is written principles of administration and not principles of public administration. The reason here is that during this period, these principles of administration were applicable to both public and private administration, and not just to public administration. In fact, during this period, there was no differentiation between public and private administration. Okay. Now, the central belief of this period was that there are certain guiding principles of administration. There were certain rules or fundamental truths in administration, and it was the job of the scholars of public administration to find out what are those principles and to apply them in the organization, so that public administration would become more efficient and more effective and more economical. Now, during this period, we saw the emergence of successful administrators like F.W. Taylor and Henry Fayol. They were engineers, okay, and they proposed engineer-based scientific methods to increase efficiency and economy of public administration. Kati unlike an industrial revolution na law America, Antoine management nina abuay pui ber to increase efficiency, output sang mo, productions ti san ka an tumberani. Tituan heng scientific principles of administration kan anti teka scholars of public administration tekan an buay pui ber law nitani. Tituan kati hunlaya scholars lar de tekanin an tumber to, they wanted to identify scientific principles of administration which could be applied to both public and private organization. Helaya mingkaron tarlan te khati hunlaya lar swal de ho khanita W.F. Wilaf Biete, Mary Parker Folletite, Gulick and Lindell Arwick. In fact, this Gulick and Arwick, they published the papers on the science of administration, and in this publication, they introduced that post-scope view of the scope of public administration. Maa kanzir to ka scope of public administration kanzir lai post-scope, acronym post-scope kanzir ka Gulick ale Arwick te propose hini. And all of these schools of thought are grouped together as classical theory, also known as mechanistic theory. And vangin mechanistic theory kantinachan, it is because organization ka sarkar organization na niemo, private organization na niemo, ka organization shim ka call angin an ngaya tituan mishing tepo a mishing athok tu tepo ka they were regarded as parts of the machine. Tituan andu na varem koma tituan scientific principles rules and fundamental truths, guiding principles of public administration teka hmu chua tichuan chu machine a chuan va apply khanin I output na sa takin na lo increase nga organization po kha smooth dewin an ran thei do na an ngai ni. Okay, so this period was called the golden years of principle in the history of public administration, and the public-private difference between public and private administration was not there during that time. And this was also a period where when public administration commanded a high degree of respectability and its products were in great demand both in government and business. It was during that time that public administration reached the zenith of its reputation. Now coming to the third period, this period is known as between 1938 to 1947. This period is known as the era of challenge, or the era of human relations and behavioral approach. Now, it was during this time that scholars of public administration began to challenge the two defining pillars of public administration. One was the politics administration dichotomy. Scholars challenge the politics administration dichotomy. They said that politics and administration could not really be separated more. And secondly, they challenged the scientific principles of public administration. They said that these scientific principles of administration were not scientific and they were not principles. They were merely proverbs, tufing, rules of thumb ang may anni antiani. Chuan khati hun lai khanin classical approach mo ahma principles era classical idea kami mechanistic idea kha nasa takin an soisela an soisel na chanchu khang theories te khan human element human factor an ngai poi mo lawan tiani chuan heti hun lai hian Hawthorne experiments kha conduct alo ni tani. Hawthorne experiments were a series of experiments which was very famous during that time, conducted between 1924 to 1932 under the leadership of George Elton Mayo, which shook the foundations of principles approach. It shook the foundations of principle approach. Achan chu hemi experiments an mu chwa chu human relations mishing na thok tu te mo an tho na muna an inkar an relations ka poi mo lu tuka khambi khanin informal organization siama ti chuanin chu informal organization chu formal organization chu a khan om ve in kha formal organization kalphung kha nasa takin ava effect ani ti te an muchwak tani tin leadership styles te tin morale of people who are working in the organization and how to motivate human beings in the organization. That human approach to administration began to be emphasized more during this period. Omzia chon ahma principles eran lo soi to zong kha nasa takin hemi period a hian scholars ti hian an challenge ani more. And the human relations approach brought out the limitations of the machine concept of organization. Heti unlaya scholars lang sar zwal te chu Chester Bernard te Herbert Simon te Robert Dahl te Joy Waldo te anni. Now coming to period 4, that is between 1948 to 1970, this period is known as the period of crisis of identity. Now in the previous period, we said that the two defining pillars of early administrative theory were rejected. That is politics administration dichotomy, scientific principle approach. All these two defining pillars of public administration were rejected, and because these two defining pillars were rejected, the discipline of public administration was facing a crisis of identity. It was argued that administration cannot be separated from politics because of its political nature and role, and that the scientific principles of public administration were neither scientific nor were they principles. So many scholars responded to the crisis by returning to the fold of political science, where they discovered that they were no longer welcome to the home of their youth. Thus, some public administrationists began searching for an alternative, and this was available in the form of administrative science. But even then, public administration had to lose its distinctiveness and separate identity and merge with a larger field. 1960s there was a lot of problems in the American society. It was a stage of turmoil and instability in the American society. We found a new reinvention, in fact the first reinvention in public administration, which was called New Public Administration. And it was this New Public Administration movement which exposed the idea that public administration was not responding to the need of the time. It was not responding to the challenges faced by the present times in America. Chuan new public administration here advocate to public administration had to be more relevant. It had to try to find solutions to the problems in the American society at that time. Now coming to the period 5, that is 1971 to continuing. This period is known as public administration as public administration, because it was during this period that public administration emerged as a new, independent, revived, reinvented uh, subject of study. Now, public administration registered great progress and entered the 1970s with an enhanced vision. And among all of the social sciences, it is the most interdisciplinary of all subjects. That means it borrows heavily from other social sciences, and hence it has become so rich and so vibrant. Both scholars and practitioners are of the opinion that there is a close relationship between politics and administration, and the entire politics administration dichotomy had been rejected, and at present government seeks to formulate and implement more and more welfare programs. So the concern here is for policy studies in public administration, to study public policies and to make them more effective, to solve the problems of the society, to make policy more relevant, to deal with present times and present challenges. Okay, so at this stage the study of public administration was gaining in social relevance, to make the study more relevant. And public administration scholars felt that the discipline was gaining, it was growing, although it had suffered a crisis of identity in the wake of its diversification and strength. And to some, the scope of the discipline began to broaden, while at the same time the question of its identity still remained unanswered. Let me go over the points quickly again. In the period 5, that is 1971 to continuing, public administration registered progress, entered the 1970s with a new vision. It is interdisciplinary, and it is concentrating more and more on the dynamics of administration. Politics administration dichotomy had been abandoned, and focus was more on the public policy approach. That is an attempt to study government policy and to make it better, to solve problems of the people, because welfare of the people is the main goal of public administration. And it was during this time in the 1990s that there was a second reinvention in public administration, and this second reinvention came in the form of new public management. Now, what is new public management? New public management perspective is the latest paradigm in the evolution of public administration. Hemi topic hin kina kanzir donani, I think it is in the unit 2 of your syllabus. Tiang zog le details zogin kanzir donani, but I will very briefly give you the meaning of new public management. It's the latest paradigm in the evolution of public administration, and it is also known as new managerialism, and a third way between public and private administration emerged out of the need to bring solutions to the challenges brought in by the new era of liberalization, privatization, and globalization, LPG. And this new public management, NPM, represents a synthesis of the public and private administration. What new public management wants to do is that it wants to suggest methods to make the government more effective and more efficient by borrowing the practices and methods that had been employed in the private organization. And that is why we say it is a synthesis between public and private administration. Now, the idea behind this is that we do not need more government because we already have enough of the government. What we need is a better government. We need better governance. And governance is the act of collectively solving our problems, and government is the instrument we use, and the instrument is outdated and it is time to remake it. And how do we remake this instrument? How do we remake and reinvent public administration to meet with the challenges brought in by LPG? Okay, this was the latest model in the evolution of public administration, which came in the 1990s. Okay, now with regard to the evolution of public administration in India, it was in 1930 that Lucknow University became the first one in India to introduce public administration in the MS syllabus. Okay, and in 1937, Madras University introduced the subject. In 1949 to 1950, Nagpur University again introduced the subject. And by 1954, the Indian Institute of Public Administration was established in New Delhi. And in 1987, public administration was introduced as a fully independent subject in the civil services examination conducted by the UPSC. And this gave a powerful impetus to the subject. Today, nearly 50 universities and hundreds of colleges and number of training institutes are engaged in the teaching and research in public administration in India. And it continues to flourish and grow, and the scope and activities of public administration continues to broaden day by day. Okay, and with that I conclude this lecture. This has been the longest lecture that I've given you so far. I thank you so much for your patience. Thank you.